Ladies and gentlemen, hello and happy Thursday. I hope you're having a good week, staying sane, keeping yourself entertained. Around here, I'm answering lots of personal questions of my own, like how many Google Meets at once can my internet support? How genetic is the tendency to fall on your face? What is the sound of a 7 and a 10-year-old doing gymnastics directly above me on the floor? And finally, how many days in a row can I wear the same outfit and maintain my consistently high self-esteem? Now, I hope you enjoyed our little intermission with baking bread and all that. But back to business, we have finished chapter 18, which was all about classification, and now we are moving into chapter 19, which is about the history of life on Earth, which is, yeah, it's long. It's like really long. It's like longer than really anybody's brain can wrap around. And so we'll start with a sense. So chapter 19 is where we are. This is the Earth's history. So what I'm talking about, this holy cow, things are old. Like the Earth is older than we really can imagine. We call that the geologic time scale, like thinking not in terms of animals, but in terms of rocks. You know, like the time scale that rocks operate on is just mind-boggling. We kind of artificially divide it, and that's what a lot of this chapter is going to be about, is those divisions and what happened during each of those divisions. The big divisions we call the eras of the Earth's history, and each era then gets subdivided into periods. What's interesting is that the vast majority of that, so the Earth is roughly 4.6 billion years old. Those are basically the oldest rocks we've been able to, to date, to chemically date and figure out how old is the Earth. So 4.6 or 4,600 million years ago. That's what that is. It's not yeah, it's million years ago. To basically a half billion years ago, right? So like the vast majority of the Earth's history we call Precambrian time. And what's going on then is so different than what we know as the Earth now. For example, for the first era, which is called the Hadean era, I don't know if you get that reference. It'll make sense in a second, because what's going on during that era is the Earth has just formed. We'll talk about how the Earth forms soon, and I'll show you a video. But since it's just formed, what's characteristic of an early planet like the Earth, basically, I hope someday you invent something amazing. If it's a time machine, here is my public service announcement. If you invent a time machine, go back somewhere cool. Stay away from the Hadean era. Stay away from really anything more than about a half billion years ago, because it's pretty crazy. The Hadean era is just widespread volcanic activity, not even cool enough for water to be water, like it's vapor. There's no oceans, nothing like that. Hadean, right? As in Hades, as in, Greek for what my son would call HE double hockey sticks. So don't go there, right? Don't go to the Archean area either, even though this is when life shows up first. The oldest living cells we can find are in the Archean era. We actually named, Archaea means old, and so there's that group of bacteria that are the direct descendants of these guys called the Archaea. So life shows up, then photosynthesis shows up, which means oxygen starts to get pumped out, right? Because photosynthesis takes, the carbon dioxide and the water and starts to produce oxygen and glucose. And so oxygen starts to fill up the oceans. Once it fills up the oceans, it fills up the atmosphere. Not fills up, okay, maybe like 16%. But that changes everything, right? Things start to get really cool at that point. Then we have the Proterozoic era, which is about the next quarter billion years. This is life getting more complex. Eukaryotes forming from prokaryotes. You remember endosymbiosis, sexual reproduction showing up, multicellularity showing up. This is a quick trip through this stuff. We'll go deeper into some of this. But the main point of today is this. For most of the Earth's history, the vast majority of the Earth's history, life has been one-celled, like a lot of it, like more than most people can imagine. Here is, I'm going to move things a little bit. Here's a little picture of, and this kind of goes bottom to top. We've got the Hadean at the bottom, but this is a terrible representation of how much time this stuff actually took up. This is Precambrian time down here. Whoa, they got that way wrong, right? This is a good way to read them, but it doesn't give you a good sense of how long each of them took. For that, this is good. This is the Earth's history from the beginning, superimposed on a basically a 24-hour clock. And wow, right? So the red part here, that's all Precambrian time. That's all just one-celled critters. That whole time, that's all we're looking at, right? Yeah, photosynthesis forms, yeah. And toward the end of it, you know, around here, we've got maybe some eukaryotes showing up. But this right here is all, I mean, life doesn't even show up until 5:30 a.m., right? So nothing living for the first, 5.5 hours. And then photosynthesis shows up about 8 a.m. Being eukaryotic shows up a little after noon. Multicellularity shows up at 5:36 p.m. But they're real simple. They're really close to single-celled organs. And there's just things like sponges and stuff like that. The stuff that we think of really doesn't show up until the last 3 hours. And honestly, if you look at modern humans, 11:58:56 for the last 4 seconds, right? So to give you a sense of perspective, that's what we're looking at. All right, but let's go back to the rest of it, right? Coming out of the Precambrian era, we go into the Paleozoic. The Paleozoic, which goes from 542 million years ago to 251. We see this explosion of diversity. It's actually called the Cambrian explosion. Most of the major animal groups evolved during this. It's a long time span, but we just call it one era. Old books used to call it the Age of Fishes. Okay, maybe they're the biggest thing around during this time, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Next, we have the Mesozoic, and you probably, if there's one you're familiar with, it's probably that one. That's the one where the dinosaurs show up, right? And they last quite a while, really. 251 million years ago to 65.5 million years ago. They're the largest life forms on Earth. First males do show up in this, and they're survivors, unlike the dinosaurs. This is called the Age of the Dinosaurs. I mean, okay, they were the biggest. And then finally, we have the Cenozoic era, 65.5 million years to present, and obviously that makes it the shortest era. We call that the Age of Mammals, but I'm going to tell you that Age of Fishes, Age of Dinosaurs, and Age of Mammals are all bad names for these eras, because really what's most numerous for the vast majority of all of these eras were, anybody know? I harp on this a lot, maybe I haven't enough yet, but insects. Insects win. Pretty much this whole slide we're looking at insects kind of dominating. And by dominating, okay, I'm a biologist, I'm kind of slanted this way, but I mean there was more of them than anything else, right? More different species of them and just straight numbers. Insects are just literally swarming the planet while everything else is, much less. Anyway, that's your quick history of life on Earth. We'll get more detail next lesson. But for your assignments, number one, I want you to watch the YouTube video that I am posting of how planets form, because that's the next lesson. We'll start with how the Earth formed. And we'll move on up through, the point where life shows up and starts to get more complex. It's a video that does I think a really good job of showing, because we know, of course, we weren't there when the Earth formed, but we know how planets like the Earth form. There are other planets out there like the Earth with the same type of elements and that kind of thing, and we've observed things about how they tend to form. And so that's what that's about. Okay, so that is part one. So that's your first assignment, watching the movie about the early Earth. Your second assignment is very, very easy. Your second assignment is this. I want you to take 4 pieces of computer paper or blank white paper or shoot construction papers, okay. And I want you to take those 4 pieces of paper. Obviously, they're not going to look like this, but this is what I have down here right now. And I want you to tape them together end to end. I'm going to give you very specific instructions. You're going to take Scotch tape, right? Like transparent tape. If you don't have any transparent tape, masking tape will do, but Scotch tape is better. And you're going to tape these end to end, right? Like this, not like this, not like this, but end to end like this. End to end, all 4 of them. Okay, I guess I can use the blank sides to show you. So all 4 of them end to make a great big long sheet of paper, as long as it can be, right? And so the way I want you to do that is please do not overlap them at all. Okay, the math we're going to be doing here with these timelines, because that's what these are going to be, is timelines eventually. You're going to tape these 4 together end to end, butt them up against each other on a flat table surface, and then just kind of lay a strip of Scotch tape down without them overlapping, right? So that they're just barely butted up against each other. No space between them, but they're touching each other, but not overlapping. And so when you're done, you'll have this big old sheet of 4 strung together pieces of paper that you can then fold up and wait for Tuesday's lesson. On Tuesday, we will start building our Earth's history timelines, okay? So watch the video, and then I think I might try and embed some questions in the video. I haven't done that yet, but shoot, I guess it's time I try something new. So yeah, watch the video. If there's questions in there, answer them. And that is all. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Your 2 assignments need to be done by Tuesday. Answer the questions that I'm embedding in the video. If I do that, we'll see if I do. And tape your 4 sheets of paper together. Okay? Have a good one.